Me a little short bio of yourself.
Short bio. Let me see. Five. I'm married to my third wife. They say third time's a charm. I live off grid for 5 years now. I love God, some people, and definitely animals.
hmm Angie told me a little bit about you. She
Uh-oh.
did, yeah, all good things. She did say that you had a history of jail time, that you're a pastor now as well. Explain to me a little bit about where you grew up and what your family life was like.
Yeah, that's
Background
easy.
info.
I grew up in Miami to a Cuban American family and with the culture from down south. Maybe around four, the divorce and the drama came. And I guess you could say my ability to make responsible decisions was not present. So I found myself making a lot of decisions with horrifying consequences. And as I found camaraderie on the street and other kids from broken homes, we attempted to kind of play, let's see who can make the dumbest decision game, which led us to very bad consequences again and ultimately to my incarceration. I was in 1996. I served an 8-year sentence in the state of Florida here. I was in 11 different institutions.
Thank you. And if you could, in your neighborhood, in the way that you grow up, in what messages do you think you kind of picked up about survival and success as a kid? Well, you were out there making these decisions.
Survival and success. I guess the interpretation of both of those were based on material things, of course, on acceptance as well that I didn't find myself getting at the home, and I found in those other kids that were kind of like me. So success to me, my interpretation of success at the time had to do with material things and the quick money, the quick life,
Right.
and the failure was the inability to attain those things. So we found ourselves doing pretty extreme things to reach these goals that we saw as success.
Okay. Understood. She also did describe you as the only person she knows that can pronounce all hallucinogens. So she did give you some credit for that. Tell me how, I mean, do you have any history with those?
Yeah, we, in the area where we grew up, it used to be a farm area before I moved there. So as we found ourselves moving there, there wasn't a lot of um, real estate up yet. But I remember as a kid playing at construction sites and such. But there were still a lot of places that had cows, and we used to hang out sometimes. And of course, as kids, we wanted to, what do you say, experiment with the shroom, and then somebody comes and says, "Hey, you guys want to trip acid, or go to a rave dance club, or and it was that type of thing."
Do you that experience with it? Do you think that that led to you kind of, I feel like you would say you can understand the science, the culture behind these drugs, especially with experience with them.
Well, that it's a funny thing you use that word culture. I was talking to somebody a short time ago about what we see as our norm and how Miami in itself has its own culture and what the things that we grew up witnessing as kids being our norm at the time. I come to realize as I become a man that they're not normal at all. And so I find myself having to rethink and relearn everything.
Yeah,
So, but the influence definitely played a part in bad judgment,
yeah,
um, and just being around others that were using bad judgment as well, which didn't help.
right. Yeah, for sure. Is there any ways that you kind of see in comparison to when you were growing up in Miami? Is there any ways that you see the conversation around psychedelics changing from then and
Um,
now?
well, if I was still in that world, I would be able to give you a fairer answer to that question. But I think it definitely had its time. Um, like now, different hallucinogens have their time.
Hmm.
You know, as I met people that were older than me, and before, right as I was coming around, they had what was it, the Quaaludes, and then my generation used the roofie as the pills, and then now, then they, and on and on. Every generation seems to have their own time
Yeah.
for their drugs of choice, and I
Yeah, and
think
they
that
find
being
new ones very quickly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I think being around at a time when, it was something somewhat of a norm, definitely played the part. It was the thing when you went out. This was what was around. This was the places, the gatherings. It all contributed to it, of
Yeah,
course.
of course. Okay. And then if you are comfortable, I'd like to go into a little bit of your prison sentence as well, if that's
Dun,
something
dun,
that you're
dun.
comfortable sharing.
Sure, I'm very open about my incarceration
Okay,
history.
awesome. So if you could kind of just describe what a typical day looked like inside of the prison for you.
You know, aside from the obvious that it's a horrible thing to live in a prison, the circumstances are somewhat, that it's almost as if there's an attempt to provide comfort. Everything is done for you. There's not much that you have to do to, uh, to anything. I have a friend who was released recently after 20-year incarceration, and something so simple like making a decision to buy toilet paper was challenging for him. He was overwhelmed by the amount of different um, companies that made toilet paper, and by the fact that he hadn't had to buy toilet paper, much less choose the brand, in 20 years. Because it's provided for you there. When you run out, you just ask for another one, and it's there. So I think the system made it real comfortable for people to be able to do their time. um, so yes, it's punishment because it's not freedom, but I did find myself to be responsible for my own incarceration. And so a day in there for me, aside from hell, it was a day of growth. It was an opportunity for me to um, begin to invest in myself as an individual, as a man, as a human being, and pursue growth in the areas of my life, in my spiritual life, in my physical life, in my psychological life, because my thinking patterns were just messed up. My mind was just messed up. There's no other way to put it. But a typical day, we wake up, maybe there's a work call in the morning where everybody has to pass inspection after you fix your bed. Depends if you're in an open bay dorm with 63 other guys, or in a closed dorm or in a two-man room. There's usually a regular inspection of the beds to make sure everybody's keeping their bunks tidy. There's a lot of activity, a lot of noise. There's never, I want to say a dull moment, but there's never a private moment, obviously. You have to eat with people, you have to take a shower with people, or you have to sleep when you can, not when you want to. It's just a different culture in itself.
Yeah.
You have a schedule that you keep on a daily basis, but there are security officers, corrections officers, to ensure that the schedules are kept, that the dorms go eat at the time that they're assigned to go eat, or you missed your opportunity. Um, Phones and all that, your loved ones have to pay for it if you want to communicate with them. And now, as I visit the prisons, I see that they're very different. I'm there on a regular basis now. Um, the guys there express, and I see firsthand that it's different now.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's what a typical day was pretty much like. I want to say 11 o'clock, lights out, and that's it. You got to go to bed and whisper.
Yeah. Kind of when you're explaining that to me, you mentioned your growth as a man spiritually, physically, psychologically. emotionally, all of those things. Do you think that there was a person or event in there that changed your perspective?
I think being in there was the event.
Okay.
People, absolutely. There was many people along the path that I found myself learning from, growing from. Whether it was good things that I witnessed or horrible things that I witnessed, they were growing. Uh, did I lose you?
Just your camera, I think.
They were growing moments. There you go. So some were not too pleasant to witness.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, they were moments of growth.
Okay. And then I know you also talked about your friend who came out toilet paper was even difficult for him to figure out. How did you personally prepare yourself mentally for your reentry into society?
I like to think that I never really left. There was a cartoon. I think it was a Ninja Turtle cartoon. I saw the kid where they ended up getting thrown in a cell for something, and one of the guys was like, "Hey, man, you know, I'm sumo. My body can be in one place, but my mind can be eating a pizza somewhere else, or something like that." And I try to listen to the people that have been there a long time and to the wisdom from the individuals that told me not to let my time do me, to take advantage of the time and invest in myself and grow from it. And so that's really where my mind was set from the moment that I got there. I realized that I really messed up, and my number one plan was to get out. I didn't
Yeah.
want to be like some of the old men that I ended up being the caretaker for, who had been down for decades and couldn't control their bowels. Um, so I decided that I would make it out, and that while I was there, I would grow and educate myself, and I did, and that's how I prepared myself to reenter. I had a plan, and I had a budget, and thank goodness that I had a sister that let me sleep on her couch for a couple months. I got out and I went right to McDonald's for $5.60 an hour. The way I told many guys, hey, go to Mickey D's, they'll hire anybody. I went, and that's how I started. And it's been over 20 years now.
Awesome. Yeah, you have a really good story, and I think that it's definitely something for other people to learn from and to see, at least from the little that I've heard about you, how far that you've come and turned your life in a completely different direction. So it's really truly awesome to hear. Angie did also mention to me that now you are a pastor. So I guess I kind of want to know what led you to become one. How did you kind of where did that
Well,
idea, I guess, come from?
as I was walking my spiritual journey, if you will, I found myself with many questions. As an individual, I think many people reach a point in their life when they begin to ask certain questions. And I did, and so I was able to take the time that I was quiet and really, really study, really research. Not like people do now. I talk to people now, and they're like, "Yeah, I researched this," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, methods did you use?" And they're like, "I watched 3 YouTube videos or whatever."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Man, we had encyclopedias when I was a kid. You really had to research stuff."
Mhm.
And just spending a lot of that time in reading history and learning. It wasn't a quick thing, and I haven't by any means arrived um, anywhere on what I would consider to be there. But I did find myself growing in my spiritual life. And as I pursued to become closer to God, I discovered that having a relationship with God was a possibility that I never considered before.
Mhm.
And so I submitted to the message that, God became a man and died on a cross and rose from the dead, the message of the Bible. And so as I continuously, I did every Bible study course and correspondence course available to me. I attended every service while I was incarcerated. And that's where, I was able to, make my mistakes and, believe my uh, crazy doctrines here and there, and then realize that, hey, man, I need to grow from this. Maybe it's not like that. And consider people again and rediscover, the values that I think that many people have lost nowadays, that our grandparents taught us, that the Bible speaks about love and joy and peace and patience and gentleness. And so I continue to pursue that part of my person, if you will, spiritually. And there was a faith-based dorm that was coming as an idea with a company called Bridges of America. I believe it was a guy named Frank Constantino now, who has some private centers, apparently. He was opening a faith-based dorm in here in Florida as part of a partnership with the DOC, and I was part of that first dorm at one of the places that I was at. And they offered a free college course, so I went to college for theology. I'm like, what? Free college? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, it was a college called the Gulf Coast Bible Institute that's here in the state of Florida. And I went for a graduate course there in theology. And then I got out. And as I started just to share my story and travel all over the place and, make a little bit of music here and there, I got the attention of a lot of local churches. And one of them was searching for a youth pastor. So I think it was 2004. I became a pastor down there. The name of the church was University Christian Church. And the lead pastor was a Puerto Rican guy named Sammy Rivera, who we're still in contact with. Awesome guy. He's retired now. They sold that church maybe two or three times since then. But that's when I guess in official capacity began to minister as a pastor. And the journey has been a long one since. And now we've kind of redirected to our online ministries, due to the fact that we can reach a lot more people
Mhm.
with a message of love. I was looking yesterday, giving some people some stats that on our new ministry page online at Church at 420, in the past 90 days, we've been able to share with almost 25,000 people. So
Wow.
that's ridiculous. At no local church was I able to do that. Maybe 50, 100, 200 people come to a local service, but thousands, like it's
Yeah.
off. So that's kind of like how that began.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool to hear, and that's really inspiring. That's awesome that you took that situation and turned it into something so amazing. Do you feel like you had any kind of doubts or struggles when you were moving along that path to becoming a pastor?
Yeah, I remember I was telling somebody, I remember the first marriage that I did. My pastor wasn't able to be present, and he had the wedding already set up, and he called me kind of like a last minute thing, and I went and I married these people, and I ended up counseling them afterwards. And it was one of these real bad situations, and I remember thinking, man, am I even qualified to give these people advice on, like, I'm trying to figure out my own life.
Hmm.
And I found myself in moments of or where I felt overwhelmed, and I seek counsel from mentors and from elder folk. I have a lot of older friends, and they pretty much told me to hang in there. That it was part of it. That's what contributed to building my patience and wisdom, I like to think.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure your past, being through as much as you did is helpful as well in
Absolutely.
giving advice to these people and just being someone that they can lean on as well. So that's awesome. To kind of wrap up, I have a few future questions for you, if that makes sense. What do you want listeners, and when I say listeners, I mean younger people who are kind of on the edge of a similar path as yours, what do you want them to take away from your story?
I guess that knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be at any given time, even though it may suck.
Hmm.
That I have a charismatic friend that would say something like, it's for your making, not for your breaking. I know that the situation or the journey to get there might be less than pleasant, But what I've gone through is what's contributed to making me the individual that I am, and it wasn't pleasant at times.
Oh, for sure. And I guess going back to, the things that you went through, what do you wish that more people would ask you about your journey?
Um, some people consider me as a misanthrope, because I live in the woods, things like that there. But um, I guess I wish some people would desire to know more about my lifestyle,
Hmm.
when it comes to, the choices that I've made. There's a lot more work that I'm involved in, things that I do.
And then my last question would be, what's a common misconception you see that people will have about redemption or change, especially with kind of people re-entering from the prison system back into society?
It depends who the individuals are. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that as somebody re-entering, misconception is that, they're gonna come home after decades and all of a sudden be the man of the house, where the wife may have been, dealing with everything for the past 20 years and carrying it. Um, Thinking that, you're gonna pick up right where you left off, like I did, because that leads to mistakes.
Hmm.
And assuming that finding, for me, it was, oh, I gotta find a wife, I gotta find a wife. And, I found myself uniting myself to somebody that was not the right choice. And there
Yeah,
was consequences again. And just thinking that, you know, that anything's gonna come fast or easy. Nothing does. Like, you gotta work for it, and that's, it's all part of it. It's part of the life, it's part of the journey, it's part of your walk.
of course. Well, I think that that is all I have. Is there anything kind of last points that you want to share?
I don't know. I like not to talk more than I'm a talker because I'm Cuban. And so I try to discipline myself to answer the questions that are asked and not to try to um over talk.
No, I mean that's okay. The point is for it to be what's gone on and how far you've come and your journey and just passing this on to the younger generation so that it's something they can learn from, you know.
Of course, like now, some of the work that we do is some very touching work. It's very hard work sometimes. Seeing these little kids in situations where maybe they don't have families. When we go into one of these youth shelters, it can be heartbreaking.
Hmm.
Last time we went, I told my wife, I'm like, there was this little girl, and I just wanted to bring her home to you so you can just raise her. Like, she still have a family.
Yeah.
And, going to another place and down in Miami, I used to go to called His House. It was the same, it was a little orphanage and they had babies in diapers. And it's just hard going to and loving on somebody that has nobody to love on them and then leaving.
Hmm.
Um, so those are just some of the stuff. Going into the prisons on a regular basis. I'm in prison because I go back to prison now. We have a mini documentary that we just released. Me and a friend of mine named Renee, who was actually a gang rival. We have a story on a platform called Pando
Hmm.
that is for anybody incarcerated, and we've gotten over 4 million people that have seen our mini documentary. So it's doing very good, circulating in the prison system. It's available in any state, any institution, anybody where they have a Securus tablet or a corrections department. Um, and then we go into Florida State Prison on Thursdays once a month. We go over here to Putnam Correctional Institute, where we also take Future Fuel with Angie. We have TGIF with Mr. David. It's a church service there. And so there's like a lot. I have the K9 program there at that prison. There's like a lot that we do over here in the county that contributes to somewhat giving back, I guess.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, like I continue to say, I'm very, very impressed by your story and your journey, and it's awesome to see someone, you know, make such a big change and take your experiences and make them something positive. So
All right. I'm trying to go to the link for the documentary so I can send it to you. I don't know if you saw it.
yeah, and what was the name of it again?
Gang Rivals.
Gang Rivals?
It's pretty strong, so I have some tissues available. Some people found it pretty emotional. We also put it on YouTube. That's the link that I'm sending you.
Okay, awesome. We can definitely, I know you said there's a lot that you didn't really get to talk about, and some of these are definitely going to need a part two. So if there's more you want to share, we can definitely set something up.
No, and I definitely wanted to keep it, relevant to future fuel.
Yeah.
If this is what that's for.
Yeah, and there is, in my opinion, everything is relevant to future fuel. And Angie's favorite saying is nothing happens in a vacuum. So there's a lot of things that, you know, to the naked eye might not seem relevant, but once you really dig into it, it all connects in random ways. So,
A pleasure.